It is Sunday, and that means that it is time for Swede Live. And well, it's winter time, also known as standard time in the United States, but it's still summertime for another week, I think, in Europe. So that might cause some confusion when it comes to timing. But it looks like there are a few people coming into the live stream, so that's good. So we're about to get started for this week, and that's awesome. So there's already 4 people in here. That's wonderful, and 2 people have hit the like button. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and hit the like button and share this live stream on your social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Go ahead and share it. Let people know that the live stream is online, that we all started. Tell your friends, your family, frenemies, enemies, whatever. Let them know. That's all good. So we'll be able to, well, so people know. So there's been a few things that's been happening in the last week or so. And well, things happened in Norway, in Sweden, in America. Obviously, there's an election coming up, and we'll see what happens with that one. So really excited about that one, because you can't really trust the polls these days, can you? So I hope you all had a wonderful week. So let's have a look at some of this week's topics. Let's have a look at the comments first here. Marlene Silvano says, looking forward to your comments about everything. Well, thank you for being here, and absolutely. And she also says Trump is getting amazingly huge crowds at his rallies every day. Oh, I can imagine that. I saw Dave Rubin was filming from a Trump rally in Beverly Hills, California. And Beverly Hills is not the first place I would think of when I think of a Trump rally, but he was there filming about a week ago. And I've been told that there are rallies every day in Beverly Hills. I haven't checked it, but that's what I was told, which is kind of interesting, because when you hear Beverly Hills, you think Democrats, but I don't know if there are any Biden rallies in Beverly Hills, but apparently they have Trump rallies. So let's see what's been going on. There's a story from Norway. In the small town of Kongsberg, there was a man who, after the brutal murder of the French teacher Samuel Paty, the man who showed the Muhammad cartoons in his classroom when talking about freedom of speech, the man who was later murdered for that. Well, after this murder, there was a man in the small town of Kongsberg in the southeast of Norway who put up some Muhammad cartoons in his town, and he was later visited by the police, and the police told him that he shouldn't do this because some people might get offended, and that the police thought that he should take the pictures down. And when this man asked the police about the legality of this, he asked them if they would have gone after him if he would have put up a picture of Jesus or Buddha or Karl Marx. The response he got was that you will never know that. And by the way, this man who has small children is originally from the Middle East, and his comments to the Norwegian alternative media when the story broke, because he went straight to Norwegian alternative media. He didn't go to the mainstream media because he didn't think they would be interested. And his comment was that will he have to abide by Sharia law in Norway too, just as in his old home country? So what we have here is a man who fled Islam pretty much. He fled from a Sharia law, and when he, in solidarity with the murdered French teacher, was putting up these pictures, he got harassed by the Norwegian police, by the Norwegian Sharia police. After this story hit the surface in Norway, first it hit the alternative media, then some of the mainstream media started talking about it too. And uh, Per-Willy Amundsen, who is a politician for the Progress Party, Fremskrittspartiet, and who is their spokesman in legal issues. When he questioned, when he rose question about this, well, then the police in police district southeast, Sørøst, they lay down flat and said we shouldn't do it. It's okay to find out what his intentions were, but we shouldn't have told him that he couldn't do this because people might get offended and so on. We shouldn't have done that, and we're sorry about that. Well, guess what? Uh, just just today, there was another story that broke about someone who put up pictures in Røros, a town in middle Norway, and now the police went after him because apparently uh, Norway, the police in Norway, they can punish you for holding opinions, for offending Islam, or they'll try to silence you because there is no law in Norway that that states that you are not to offend Islam or you are not to offend Muslims, but you still get the police coming after you. So freedom of speech is is a concept that's really not protected in Norway, and it isn't in Sweden either, by the way. We'll get to that. Let's have another look at the comments. Charles Keaton says, Keaton here. Well, that's wonderful. I'm happy that you're here. Mario Michaelides says, Muhammad was a pedophile. That's absolutely right. He was. Lakiva says, President Trump is speaking. Oh, that's great. And Lakiva also says, how did Europe ever fall so low? Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that political correctness is pretty much what happened, and political correctness is some kind of, well, it's the consequence of socialism. Well, as Charles Keaton says, the voters voted for it, and yeah, actually they did, because sometimes I end up in these discussions online or with people, but not so often in person anymore. But sometimes these discussions rise when I say that, well, actually, the voters in Sweden or the voters in Norway or whichever country it's about, that they actually voted for this, and people will go on about how horrible the politicians are and so on, and I'm like, yeah, that's correct, but they were voted in office by the voters. If the voters disagree with this, they should inform themselves and get these politicians out and get some better people in. But a lot of people seem to still be voting for the same party and the same politicians that they've always have been. I'd say there is like a large minority in some countries that want something different, but you still have what you want to call mainstream politics or whatever that still get voted into office. So yeah, sadly, I would say that the voters, yeah, they did vote for this. Sadly. Marlene Silvano says, is Marxist. Yeah, it's Marxist or neo-Marxist, whatever you want to call it, because the Marxists pretty much gave up class and now they just want to talk about other issues, uh, skin color, gender, whatever that is, and a lot of those issues. And for some reasons, if you're opposed to Islam, you're somehow a racist, which is strange since Islam is not skin color, it's not an ethnicity, it's not a race. There are white Muslims and black Muslims, just like there are white Christians and black Christians, and of course of all other colors too. And there are black Christians in Nigeria persecuted by Muslims, and yeah, it's crazy. But for some reason, If if I uh, if I stand up in solidarity with the Christians in Nigeria, I am somehow a racist. I mean, it's just doesn't make any sense. But the reasoning is just odd, or just insane. But let's see. We now have 15 people in here. There are 6 likes, so you can go ahead and hit the like button. That'd be awesome. And share this live stream on your social media. Let your friends and family know this live stream is online. That'd be awesome. And it helps a lot if you do that. It doesn't cost a dime to do it. And the likes and the sharings, it helps. It helps this channel a lot. And when you hit the like button, it tells the overlords of YouTube that people want to watch this. So you can go ahead and do that. And I mean, of course, super chats are always welcome. Let's have a look at some of the other topics. We can talk about 50 Cent a little. In a moment, I'll look at this comment first. Lakiva says, it was sad to see the abortion march in Poland. Abortion refreshes evil spirits and makes the womb an altar of human sacrifice. Attack the seed and you destroy human beings. Children carry our seed. Oh, was there a pro-abortion march in Poland? Is that what you mean? Because I know there was an anti-abortion or a pro-life march in Poland a few weeks ago. And if I remember correctly, was it the Polish president or the Polish prime minister? Well, one of them joined in. But if I understand you correctly, there's been a pro-abortion march too now. I'm sorry to hear that. Who would imagine that would happen in Poland? Let's see. Charles Gideon says the unholy alliance of neo-Marxism and Islam has a simple explanation. They both want to crush the Western civilization. Yeah, basically, yeah. They have a mutual enemy, and you could say so did the socialists and the Islamists in Iran. They were both opposed to the Shah, but once they had gotten the Shah out, well, what happened then to the left? Well, the Islamists hanged them. Where is the Iranian left today? They live in Stockholm. They live in Los Angeles. They don't live in Iran, and if they do, they're pretty much underground. Anyway, let's say a few words about 50 Cent. He came out as a Trump supporter like a week ago or so, and he's been doubling down and tripling down on his stance that yeah, he's in favor of Trump. He thinks Biden's tax plan is insane. He doesn't want to pay taxes that high. And of course, the left's been on him and saying he misunderstood. The taxes won't be that high and so on. But actually, from what I understand, the numbers he was quoting, they were correct because they had added up what would be the sum of local taxes and state taxes and federal tax if Biden's tax plan would be put into action. So what happened? Well, Chelsea Handler, some kind of comedian, I think, and according to herself, an ex-girlfriend of 50 Cent. And by the way, not that this should matter, but by the way, a white woman. She said in an interview that I think it was with one of these comedians. She said that she had to remind 50 Cent that he is black, so he can't vote for Trump. And I'm like, say what? But let's have a look here. Lakiva just sent a super chat of $10. Thank you very much for that. That's very generous of you. I really appreciate your generosity. So thanks a lot. Yeah, that's wonderful. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing as when Joe Biden said in that infamous interview with this black YouTuber, the guy who calls himself Charlemagne the God, and Joe Biden pretty much ended the interview by saying that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. And now this woman says I had to remind 50 Cent that he's black, so he cannot vote for Trump. And I'm like, the Democrats still haven't forgiven the Republicans for freeing the slaves, and they are sure not going to forgive the descendants of slaves when they when they vote for Republicans and when they go public about it. I mean, what other way is there to see it? I don't know. Let's see. Lakiva says, "You're welcome. God bless." Well, thanks a lot, and God bless you too. Marlene Silvano says her white privilege showing. Well, actually, in this case, yeah, we can absolutely say that. In this case, absolutely. V Lightning says white privilege doesn't exist. It's just Chelsea's racism showing. Yeah, I don't believe in white privilege. But yeah, absolutely. The thing with the left is they can say these insane things, and it's all like it's okay when we do it because they don't. I don't know if they can even hear themselves. I don't understand. Uh, but yeah, speaking of Trump, now he's brokered a peace deal between Sudan and Israel, and you could say that there was not an active war between Sudan and Israel. That's probably correct. I mean, as far as I know, there hasn't been Sudanese soldiers going to Israel to fight Israel or anything like that. But they've been in a state of war, and with these peace deals that Trump is brokering, well, you could say that the Palestinians, the Palestinian Arabs, they're kind of losing their allies because we now have countries, United Arab Emirates, Sudan, and a bunch of other countries that's giving up on this Palestinian project. And this might actually force the Palestinians to, to have peace with Israel. Let's see. Charles Kidden says, it's the same in Sweden. The left shames all people of color not voting for the Social Democratic Party, the Left Party, or the Green Party. Yeah, that's right. Uh, there is this man, Hanif Bali. He is originally from Iran, and he is a member of Sweden's parliament for the Moderate Party. And I'm not much of a fan of the moderates, but he, he he's still one of my favorites in the Swedish parliament, and he's been called all kinds of things that if those statements would come from the other side, it would have been denounced as being racist and so, and it would have been, but it is when it comes from the left too. So let's see what else has been going on. On Friday, October 23rd, in Stockholm, outside Parliament, there was a Quran burning. The Quran burning was stopped by police, and the people who arranged this Quran burning are now under a suspicion of hate speech because burning a Quran is apparently considered hate speech in Sweden. Although when Rasmus Paludan's when his party did that in Sweden, from what I understand, the charges were dropped, but that won't stop them from putting charges towards anyone who tries this. Apparently, so yeah, that's been happening in Sweden, and there is this American YouTuber, David Wood. He's a Christian apologist, and he is a staunch critic of Islam. Seriously, yeah, and this was also on Friday, on October 23rd. He was, the FBI knocked on his door, but here is the difference between Western Europe and America. The FBI knocked on David Wood's door to tell him that some bad people are after him after he made a video in which he tore up a page of the Quran to eat it, and he drew a cartoon of Muhammad, which you now can see in the background of his videos. So there are some bad people who want him dead, pretty much. And the FBI said that we got word of this, so just so you know, we got your back. We're looking out for you. Because when they knocked on his door and he said, well, yeah, this was in response to some bad people. And they said, we're not here to criticize your videos. We just want you to know that we got your back. And I'm like, if this would have been in Sweden or in Norway or in Britain or in Finland, the authorities would come to your door and hand you a fine or or tell you that you have to show up in court on trial, and that you might get sentenced to jail or to a heavy fine. So yeah, uh, so yeah, that is really different. Let's see. Lakiva says, I had a dream of many small evergreen trees on the sides of mountains representing the replenishing of the Europeans. Oh, okay. Uh, let's see. George Gikopoulos says, I am communist and I ask Sweden to be part of Soviet Union. Oh, Sweden is already a part of the Soviet Union. It's known as the European Union. Let's see. Charles Kidden says, why are people today so irrationally afraid of hatred? Hatred is just a natural feeling that dwells in all of us. How is it possible to ban a natural feeling? Uh, Abolish all hate speech laws, I say. Yeah, about that. As I mentioned when I was talking about these things that have been going on in Norway, and how Per-Willy Amundsen, the spokesperson in legal issues for the Progress Party, Fremskrittspartiet, how he raised these issues. He has also stated that Norway's hate speech laws ought to be abolished, and I agree. There should be no such thing as hate speech as a legal. I mean, legally it shouldn't exist. Uh, I think incitement should be banned, and you shouldn't be allowed to stand up in a movie theater or in a theater and shout fire unless there is a fire. And we can discuss slander and things like that, but hate speech as a concept, no, it shouldn't exist. So those laws need to go. Okay. Also in Norway, uh, the Norwegian authorities have given benefits. They are called Corona benefits. Pretty much COVID-19 benefits have been given to something called Islam.net. Islam.net is a Wahhabist organization, and they have been getting benefits due to COVID-19 because of that you need to have benefits. However, a different organization known as Ungdom i Uppdrag, which means Youth on a Mission, which is a Christian organization, have been denied similar benefits because they are opposed to same-sex marriages. Well, I'm guessing that Islam.net are not fans of same-sex marriages either, and I'm guessing that while Youth on a Mission would say that we don't agree with same-sex marriages, but we are all God's children, and we may not approve of your lifestyle, but God still loves you and will pray for you. I don't think that would be Islam.net's response to to same-sex marriages, but they are getting money from Norwegian taxpayers, which is crazy. I don't think any of these should get money from taxpayers, but I mean, the same rules should apply. Lakiva says, I realize why men don't multitask while working on heavy equipment. Single tasking is superior in such cases. I haven't thought of that. Uh, Marlene Silvano says, I'm trying to send a super chat, but for some reason I can't. Oh, okay. Well, I can send a link to PayPal. That might be helpful in the chat moment, and I'll send a link to my PayPal account. So that can be an option for you or for anyone else. One moment, and I'll send it in the chat. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so there's a link to my PayPal for those who, for some reason, are unable to send super chats or who prefer a different option. And after this live stream is over, well, it might take a day or so, but I will add some links in the box below after this live stream is over for people who watch it later and for people who'd like to re-watch it or whatever. So I will add some links there. So let's see here. Lakiva says, you know why God doesn't give you open visions while you're working on heavy equipment? Because he's smart. Oh, okay, I haven't thought of that, but yeah, absolutely. Marlene Silvano says, thanks. Oh, you're welcome. And Lakiva says, sometimes the wording of super chats is censored. Oh, I can imagine that. Absolutely, I can imagine that happening. So we got 30 people in the chat right now, and 22 people have 22 likes. So hey, I actually got more likes than views right now. But if you haven't hit the like button, you can go ahead and do that. Let's see if my tea is. Yeah, it's not insanely hot. Good. Let's see. Well, Swedish so-called conservatives have been in the news over sort of a conflict with Estonian conservatives or Estonian national conservatives. That might be what they are. Well, what happened in short is this. Mart Helme, who is the interior minister of Estonia, and he belongs to a party called EKRE, and about a week ago or so, in an interview with a German broadcaster, Deutsche Welle, he proposed that Estonian homosexuals should move to Sweden. And the reason why he said this was because, well, they were kind of on him because he says that he wants that marriage should be a union between one man and one woman, and he wants this to be put into the Estonian constitution. So when they complained about this, he said that, well, if you don't agree, you can move to Sweden. They're nice and tolerant over there. You can go there. And what happened after that was that there is apparently some members of the Swedish moderate coalition party, the so-called conservatives of Sweden. They're not really conservatives. They're pseudo-conservatives, but okay, they pretend to be conservatives sometimes when they feel like it. 3 people from that party who live in Estonia had their own little demonstration against this, and they thought that Sweden should send. Oh right, they thought that yeah, Estonia can send their homosexuals to Sweden, and Sweden can send their homophobes to Estonia. I'm not sure if Estonia would like an influx of a bunch of jihadists, because I guess that's what it really would be like, but. Yeah, so these people they were interviewed by the Swedish-speaking news of Finland, and then the story was also covered in RT in Russia Today, and I'm like, okay, so this minister in Estonia, Mart Helme, he is not media trained, he's not a diplomat, but I mean on this issue he is correct. A marriage should be a union between one man and one woman, no more and no less. And any Western conservative, no matter from which conservative tradition you come in the West, this should be obvious to you. If you think that it's intolerant of you or something like that, that marriage should be something else, well, you can be a liberal or a socialist, but calling yourself a conservative and having this view, that wouldn't qualify you to any kind of conservative in the West. Let's see. Charles Keaton says, I find it quite remarkable that a foreign political party intervenes in Estonian politics in that way. Yeah, wouldn't it be interesting if EKRE would stand outside the moderate coalition party's headquarters in Stockholm and have their own demonstration there? Wouldn't that be interesting? Charles W. McPeak says, no way. And let's see, Yakona23 says, thanks for your videos and live streams, Swede. Well, thank you for watching and for participating and all of that good stuff. And hey, to the people who's here, You can go ahead and hit the like button if you haven't done so already. You can share this live stream with friends and family, uh, co-workers, whatever, on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, whatever you're using. Just share it. Let people know that this one is online, and hey, if they see it after this one is done, they can always watch it later, and they can learn that there is another live stream coming up next week. And I'm not 100% sure. I think that there will be winter time in America next week, but I'm not 100% sure. So let me put it like this: uh, this live stream is always starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time, Boston time, whatever you want to call it. Uh, that's the easy way to remember. It's always 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sundays. So that's what it is. Let's see here. Uh, Charles Keaton says the moderate coalition party is a conservative party. Well, yeah, they are. And Marlene Silvano says, I don't like Pope Francis. I think he's a heretic. I'm Catholic. And then she says, PayPal worked. Thanks. Well, thanks a lot. And I'm gonna have to agree with Charles Keaton on here. He says Pope Francis is a Marxist anarchist. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Uh, yeah, I'm sure you're referring to his recent statements on civil unions for same-sex couples, and we know that, well, that's how it all got started in Scandinavia. And first there were civil unions, and now there are same-sex marriages, and then the same thing happened to a lot of states in the US. So I don't know. I think they probably have it in Italy by now. Who knows? I'm not sure. Uh, but yeah, it's like you start sort of to loosen the definition of marriage, and that's what you end up with. Let's see. Valkyria Medic says daylight savings ends in the USA next Sunday. Swede, you're correct. Oh, okay. Well, to the Americans, or I guess to Canadians too. I don't know if I have any Canadians in here these days, but whatever. Uh, it is the time is always Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Uh, this week that meant that this got started at 7 p.m. Central European Time, but next week it's going to be 8 p.m. Central European Time. In my time zone, it's an hour later than Central European Time, but for simplicity, I use Eastern Standard Time and Central European Time. Well, just to explain when this happens. Oh, Sheldon Hofstad just sent a super chat of 200 Czech coronas. Thanks a lot, sir. And he says, hi from Prague again. Just finished watching Trump rally in New Hampshire. Oh, that's wonderful. Uh, how are things in Prague these days? I hope they're great. I miss Prague, but you know how things are these days. It's kind of difficult to go anywhere, and I would probably have to self-isolate if I went to Prague, and I wouldn't really afford it right now either. Yeah, you know, it's complicated, but I hope I'll be able to go to Prague in the future because Prague was wonderful. I like to walk over the Charles Bridge again. That'd be awesome. And Trump rally in New Hampshire. Well, if Trump starts winning states on the East Coast, that'd be wonderful. Wouldn't it be awesome if Trump won Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and places like that? And by the way, wouldn't it be awesome if Trump won California? I don't think he will, but hey, I hope I'm wrong. Marlene Silvano says, was an entryist. Um, I was waiting for Charles Kinnan to explain that one. Well, let's see. Let's see. We'll see if he does. Charles W. McPake says Marxism goes counter to everything we hold dearly. Yes, it does. Charles Kinnan says, isn't it interesting that the homosexual movement in Sweden originally wanted to crush the bourgeois tradition of marriage? Now they're really offended if one does not want to recognize their same-sex marriages. Yeah, that is crazy. Absolutely. But it's like when I say in the good old days, the left were against priests and pastors, period. And now they're offended if someone is opposed to women priesthood or women pastors, but they're not supposed to be in favor of priests and pastors at all. So which way do you want it? You can't have the cake and eat it too. You kind of have to decide which foot to stand on here. Uh, let's see. I say an entryist is someone who kind of goes into an organization to change it, like how Trotskyists would uh, would enter other political parties a few decades ago from the idea that if you can't beat them, join them. Some people would like to claim that the neoconservatives, a lot of them are old Trotskyites who joined the Republican Party, and I don't know, but I'll say that yeah, that was a strategy. Yeah, infiltration. That's the word I'm looking for here. Charles Gideon says entrism is basically infiltration. Lakiva says, what would you say about the Catholic and Orthodox churches opening the Eucharist to their Protestant brothers and sisters to foster unity and strengthen the Christian culture sphere? Well, sure, absolutely. I say there's a lot of things that we can that we can disagree on, but as long as we can agree on Christ being the Son of God and being Savior, absolutely. Let's see. Marlene Silvana says, I live in New York State and there are tons of Trump signs, except in the city areas. Oh, I can imagine that. I can imagine that once you get to upstate New York or something like that, things are a lot different than if you are, in Brooklyn or something. Because I've been in New York City, but I've pretty much only been in downtown New York. I was in something called the Financial District, and I've been to, oh, what's it called again? Not Broadway. Wall Street? No. Oh, maybe I'll remember it. Uh, yeah, it was a few years ago. Uh, I've seen the Statue of Liberty from the Staten Island ferry, but yeah, I've seen New York City, but I haven't been to upstate. Upstate is probably a lot more. I guess upstate is a lot more red than New York City. And for any Europeans who don't already know this, red in America means Republican, while red in Europe means socialist. So anyway. Sheldon Hofstadter says, we have partial lockdown, it sucks. The Czech health minister, uh, Primula, rather unusual surname, was photographed breaking the lockdown rules and is forced to step down. Rules for thee, but not for me. Well, at least this minister is forced to step down. I don't think lockdowns is a good strategy. I could kind of see the point of it in the beginning when we were trying to figure out what this virus was, but by now, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, of course, we have to protect the elderly and people with pre-existing conditions and stuff like that. But closing down entire society, well, we have the seasonal flu coming every year, and people die from that too. Uh, and I mean, people die because they're hit by cars, but we don't ban cars. Maybe someone thinks we should, but I'm just saying there's a certain element of risk to living. We cannot ban every risk because then we all have to stay in all day, all the time, and then we'll die of starvation in our apartments instead. So, yeah, I'm just saying. So, nah, I'm not a fan. I've seen that now there is some kind of lockdown going on in Poland suddenly because they closed the bars and the restaurants and the cafes. Uh, so there's not a lockdown where I'm at here in the Baltics. They have some new rules in place. You have to put on a mask when you go on the tramway and stuff like that. But it's not a lockdown. Restaurants, places like that are still open. You can go into a restaurant and order food. You can sit there and eat. You can go to a grocery store, but in a grocery store you have to wear a mask. Not everyone does, though. I would say about 90% complies with the rules and about 10% won't. I will for a very simple reason. I don't like the rules, but I don't want to get into any trouble. I don't want to get fined. I don't want any trouble with the authorities. That's pretty much it. I mean, that's not something I would be willing to take a fight for. So I'm like, okay, it's stupid, but I'll do it. There are other things that are more important to fight for. Let's see. Marlene Silvana says New York City is almost like a ghost town now. Crime has people fleeing New York City. And Lakiva says, I drove along a huge convoy of civilians in cars and a lot of pickup trucks yesterday in Ohio through Wheeling, West Virginia, and into Pennsylvania. Every overpass was filled with Trump supporters. That's what I'm being told too from people who's been traveling the US lately, that they see Trump signs everywhere, but there are almost no Biden signs. So I don't know. Sometimes the mainstream media says that the polls point to a Biden victory. I don't know. We'll see what happens on November 3rd. We'll see if we will be able to conclude anything on election night. We'll see what happens. But yeah, back in 2016, they said that Hillary's going to win, and like the odds of Trump winning was like 25-1 or something like that, or maybe even more crazy. So we'll see what happens. So yeah, we've been on here for 40 minutes, so we got about 10 minutes left. I'll ask you a few questions that we can talk about in the last 10 minutes, and if you have any prayer requests, comments, super chats, whatever, well, this is the time to do it. But I'll start with the first question. I think most of the people I recognize from previous live streams, but I think there are a few new people in here too, and not everyone has necessarily wrote anything in the chat. But anyway, the first thing I'd like to know is, where are you from, and what are the hot issues in your country or your area? And I'll post it in the chat too, so you can see it. Like Kiva says, those polls are more fake than a 26 cents quarter. Oh yeah, yeah. I think you're right about that. I'd like to see a 26 cents quarter. That would be interesting. Let's see. Muddy Funstar Crypto says, living in Stockholm sucks. So many ignorant, brainwashed move brains. Yeah, well, the thing about Stockholm, and it's not just Stockholm, it seems to be the same thing with all bigger cities, capital cities, and larger cities, whether it's Stockholm, Oslo, Copenhagen, New York City, London, whatever. A lot of the fools, well, they flock together in the bigger cities, they move over there. So, yeah, that's why these cities, well, they turn into these left liberal havens, if you want to call it that. Let's see. Valkyria Medic says, Iowa, USA. Biden emails. Oh, yeah, the emails. Yeah. There's something with Democrats and emails. Isn't it strange? Zombie Apocalypse says, America is going to be cyber hacked. Just you watch. Oh, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that election night could be really dramatic. So I hope I'll have the opportunity to follow the election results on election night. It's going to be really interesting. So we'll see what happens then, and we'll see if there will be a winner on election night. If anyone was, well, if any of the candidates will be able to, well, to concede that he lost and that the other guy won. We'll see what happens. But I mean, you know me. I really hope that Trump wins, but it ain't over till the fat lady sings. That's pretty much my take on it. I believe that Trump will win, but I will really believe it when I see it. Let's see. Yeah. Uh, so we got Stockholm, we got Iowa. Muddy Funstar Crypto says, why are you leaving Sweden? Do you think this place is going to get really bad? Well, basically, I left Sweden in 2006. I was in Sweden last year for about half a year, or from August last year until February this year. But apart from that, I haven't lived in Sweden since 2006. The last 8 months I've lived in Latvia, but this is only temporary. Basically, I'm waiting for my visa to the US, and hopefully I'll have it before the end of this year. Hopefully, uh, well, my wife is an American, and I'd rather live in the US with her than bringing her to Sweden or to Norway, where I lived for 12 years. I wouldn't see the point in doing that. I'd much rather live in the US. Let's yeah, and I think Sweden is going to get really bad, but I hope I'm wrong about that. But I don't really see much hope for Sweden, sadly. But I hope I'm wrong. Charles Kidner says, according to the Swedish Broadcasting Corporation, Biden will win as everyone hates Trump. Yeah, the Swedish Broadcasting Corporation needs to send someone on a road trip from coast to coast and just film the signs. And let's see how many Biden signs they will find. Let's see how many Trump signs there are for every Biden sign is they find, or the other way around. Let's see. Zombie Apocalypse says Northern California hate Trump 1,000,000 to 1. Okay, and still in Beverly Hills, California, they have Trump rallies. I know Beverly Hills is Southern California, but well, maybe they have Trump rallies in Northern California too. You probably know. Let's see. Lakiva says the media owners ran interference from Western multinational kleptocrats' Chinese investments over the well-being of the American family. Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think Biden is pretty much in the pocket of the Chinese government, or you could say he's been dealing with Chinese businessmen. But in China, can you really separate between business and government? Because a business in China, if the government tells them to do something, they pretty much have to do it. So yeah, I mean, I think if Biden wins, we're in big trouble. Marlene Silvano says the USA has the Second Amendment. That's correct. That's correct, and you should stick to it. Charles Kidnan says the Swedish journalists in the US have tried to find at least one Trump supporter, but they have been unsuccessful. Apparently, everyone supports Biden, and he adds a smiley. Yeah, apparently, or I don't know. Maybe they never leave New York City or Boston or wherever they're at. Maybe they don't dare to go to upstate New York or to Wisconsin or to Ohio or Texas or whatever, Florida. Mm. Yeah, Muddy Funstar doesn't seem to like California. Well, we'll see. I don't think California is going to go Republican in this election. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I hope you do. But remember, California was the state of Ronald Reagan. That was the state that made Ronald Reagan governor, and that's pretty much the thing that made it possible for him to run as president. So, well, things can change. Charles W. McPake says the positive can only be for the free world. Trump 2020, absolutely. Zombie Apocalypse says our American radical left is going to revise the Constitution immediately upon election. They will pack the Supreme Court that will start revising or eliminating the amendments. Yeah, as I'm saying, if Biden wins, well, you're in deep trouble. So I'll ask you something else before we leave here too. So who do you think will win, Trump or Biden? And I will post it in the chat. And you could also say who you think will win and who you hope will win, if that wouldn't be the same one. Lakiva says Trump landslide. I hope you're right. And Valkyrie Medic says Trump. I hope you're right. I certainly hope so. If you look at enthusiasm, you'd think Trump will win. So we will see. Marlene Silvano says Trump. Yeah. Valkyrie Medic says the only way Biden wins is voter fraud. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, yeah. Muddy Funstar Crypto says Swedish journalism died a long time ago. They just copy paste what CNN say. Yeah, pretty much. And then Muddy also says Trump. Yeah, I hope you're right about that. So that's pretty much it for this week. If you have any last minute comments, any prayer requests, any last minute super chats, anything like that, you can post it in the chat. I'll wait a minute or two before I log off, and I'll look at the comments while I wait. But we're down to our last minute or so. Let's see. Charles Kidden says, I think that Trump will win. Leftism is very un-American. Unfortunately, the woke generation will soon rule the US. I would say I agree to a certain extent. I agree that leftism is very un-American. The woke generation, well, that's pretty much the millennials. However, they say that the next generation, Generation Z, Z as in zebra, the people born from year 2000 and onwards, is the most conservative generation since people born in the 1920s. I hope they're right about that one. I saw from Britain that people in their 20s, I mean, roughly 20 years, were just as conservative as people in their 40s. And although we may not think that people in their 40s these days are very conservative, think about it, because people have a tendency of becoming more conservative when they get older. If today's 20 years old in Britain, maybe in the US too, if they start at the same level as the average 40-year-old already has arrived to, well, maybe there is some hope then. When it comes to me, we can just skip millennials and go straight from our generation over to Generation Z when it comes to who is to govern who is to govern the country. Let's see. Pale Silver says Trump. Without him, the EU will conspire with the corrupt to kill Brexit. Yeah, I think you're right about that one. Marlene Silvano says, I think the woke generation is almost over in America. I hope you're right about that. So that's pretty much it for this week. So thank you all for participating. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for your generosity, for the super chats. That's wonderful. So I hope to see you again next week. And next week it will be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which will be the same thing as 8 p.m. Central European Time. I'll look at Lakiva's comment, and then that's pretty much that'll pretty much be it for this week. Let's see. Lakiva says, God told to Jeremiah he would give his eunuchs a name better than sons of God. Part of God's role is a parent. This means we are brothers and sisters. Well, amen to that. So that's pretty much it for this week. So it's time to wrap this up. So as I said, thank you all. Thank you for participating. Thank you for super chats. Thank you for comments. And have a great week. See you next time. And until then, have a great week and God bless.